Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for another episode of Let's Argue, where I hop on here, I take your hot takes, your unpopular opinions, your tough questions, I respond to the best ones. That's what I do, bro! Yeah, that's my thing! Yeah! That's what I live to do! DJ Akademiks is the worst thing in music right now. What kind of stinks about Ak's content is that at one point it kind of was about the music in at least some sense, but that's just not really the case anymore. And again, I sort of understand because the algorithm has very much incentivized him to make his content entirely about drama, entirely about controversy, which, I mean, if you want to do that, go ahead and do that. That's fine. If you want to focus on all the stuff, all the crap that is just orbiting the music, go for it. But if you're going to do that, you can do that and be truthful about it and be honest about it. You don't need to be extremely biased and take sides with little to no evidence for your claims and drag the names of people like Megan through the mud just for clicks and just for views and just to bait your misogynist audience. Because just to remind you guys, Tory was guilty. Everybody who was on the Meg lied, Tory is not guilty train was an idiot, and everybody who lied to sort of create that narrative is an asshole and a piece of garbage. Real emo only consists of the DC emotional hardcore scene and the late 90s screamo scene. What is known by Midwest emo is nothing but a ooh, yummy copy pasta. Acts who use demos as bait to flog a deluxe version or subsequent reissues can get Nobody wants to hear half-baked versions of your songs which were mumbled into a phone and sound like they were recorded down a well. What albums are you even referring to? I mean, I'm sure there are examples, but like, here's the thing. Sometimes hearing demo versions of tracks on an album that you enjoy can be cool and can be interesting and can kind of give you a new view and perspective on those songs and the process it took to create them. I will say this though, what also bugs me with deluxe versions is, yeah, you don't get demos, but you get like extra tracks. You get tracks that basically weren't good enough to make it onto the album, so you just kind of get reminded of why they weren't able to be on the LP because they so obviously suck or aren't really finished, clearly weren't worthy of being on the LP with the rest of the gang. People who hate Sade and think she's boring have never felt the touch of a woman in their life. If you hate Sade, it's probably because you're not a very sensual person. Maybe you don't enjoy physical relations and romance and love all that much. You know, you don't really do all that foreplay nonsense. You just like to, you know, hit it with a couple of pumps and you're done. You're making the world a sadder place. I cannot stand Guns N' Roses, possibly the most overrated band of all time. I never understood how they got so popular except Slash being a decent guitarist. I would say Guns N' Roses' main appeal, it's just hooky anthems and pomp. It's a lot of pomp. Just everything big, everything loud, everything dramatic, everything pronounced, everything wee, everything, oh yeah, welcome to the jungle, baby. Far from the best band to do that sort of thing, but I think one of the more standout bands from their era, I would take them over a lot of freaking hard rock bands or hair metal bands out of the 80s. I'd rather listen to Guns than freaking Quiet Riot. If, you know, you're an introspective, quiet, cute little guy,
you'll probably, you know, enjoy something more subtle like Sufjan Stevens, and that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that.
Spotify's new lower royalty for more exposure program, if I'm correct on what the program is, will be heavily used, even though it's a scam and will show the other music streaming services that they can and will do the same thing. Yeah, it's definitely the worst and most exploitative thing that Spotify has tried to do to musicians since doing all the stuff they usually do to exploit and take advantage of musicians. However, really thinking about it, I wonder how long artists will actually like buy into it, because here's the rub. How many artists will they offer this service to? How many of them will opt in? And then further beyond that, how many of them will actually see the benefit of opting into this program? Because presuming that thousands and thousands and thousands of artists decide to hop on board, there are only so many users on Spotify. There's only so much algorithm to go around. How much of an impact can it really have on some random underground musician's career? Really, the only way to make the idea of jumping into this exciting would be for there to provably be some kind of effect as a result of it in terms of an artist like blowing up or gaining an audience that they would have never had before. And I'm kind of doubting whether or not that's actually going to happen, honestly. Pusha T was carried throughout his whole career. The only reason he was ever in any conversation was because of Drake or Kanye up until his recent album. He rode the coattails of his beefs or more famous friends. Who the hell is protecting this man? He should have fell off years ago. Shut up! Clips was one of the greatest hip-hop duos of all time. You're talking about Pusha T having famous friends. I'm not talking about why he has famous friends. It's because he's a very good, talented, and influential artist. In many respects, an artist's artist. Like, if you're an artist and you want to make good songs and hop on good beats and you admire quality lyricism, your ears are going to be drawn to a guy like Pusha T. You're saying he's, like, carried. Meanwhile, the people who he's beefed with, like Drake, where was his career before the Wayne endorsement? Where was his career before Young Money and all that? It's only because of the carrying and the endorsements and the cosigns that Drake was able to withstand all the years of ridicule and wheelchair Jimmy to actually get to a point where people took him seriously. So don't tell me about being carried, okay? Even though 2010's pop music was enjoyable in general, it was kind of bad. You're kind of describing pretty much every era of pop music. Every era of pop music is generally enjoyable, but also kind of bad, and we only end up looking back on many of these decades of pop with rose-colored glasses because we only remember the good stuff and we forget all the shit. It's kind of the process of pop. A lot of mediocrity until we actually get some gems here and there. Why does no one ever admit that The Velvet Underground and Nico is a collab album? Probably the most famous example of one. And yet, I mean, it's in the title. Maybe people don't name it as a collab album off the bat, in the forefront of their minds because, it's not like both artists were super established before making the record. It's not a collab album in the sense that some albums are, where there's anticipation because there's a really passionate fan base for both artists and now they're coming together to make a record. So yeah, I mean, it is kind of acknowledged as being a collab album in the titling of it, but it's also like a debut in a sense, and I think its priority and its historical significance as a debut is more, I guess, part of the larger conversation of the album than it is, the fact that it's also a collab. A collab in which Nico isn't even featured on all the tracks, which in a way is almost kind of a case against it as a formal collaboration. It's not a collab in the same way that Metallica and Lou Reed Lulu's a collab, you know what I mean? The new Slowthai album was missing something. It seems stuck between styles, not embracing any of them fully or to great effect. I love genre fusion albums, but the best ones use genre sounds and a greater concept rather than creating fragments, each entirely in one genre. Interesting. I don't know if I agree with your assessment of the album in general, because there are only a few tracks on the LP that I think I could call out as being true blue hip-hop songs. Most of the songs on the record, in my view, have more of a rock feel to them, at least kind of a rock singer-songwriter type feel to them. I think Slowthai embraced the direction of a rock record pretty wholly and clearly on this LP. I mean, sure, he does touch down a lot of different styles and blends of rock music, not really kind of sticking to one too consistently, but it does very much feel like a move toward rock and live instrumentation for him. So, I mean, I'm not really seeing what you see here in terms of a lack of a firm and close embrace of something. I think the album is a very firm and close embrace, again, of rock aesthetics and of, again, just kind of a lot of narratives around sorrow, pain, loss, mental health. So while I think your perspective is interesting, I have to disagree. But I love you, and I appreciate you still for coming through. Give me your thoughts. Give me that hot take. You and everybody else featured in the video as well. You're the best. We're going to end it here. This has been Let's Argue. Thank you for watching. Mwah. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Let's Argue forever.